To you, he is a general that keeps the Brampton Battalion in shape and at the top of their game, but there are more sides to Coach Butler. Stan Butler was raised in the Greater Toronto area and always felt that people with the biggest influence in his life were his teachers and coaches. He decided to pursue both. After completing his degree in physical education from Brock University in 1979, he continued on to complete a bachelor's degree in education from the University of Toronto and a master's in education from Brock University again. Stan Butler became a high school teacher. Butler switched to coaching hockey shortly after, feeling that it would be an opportune sport to coach. Stan Butler has been the head coach and director of hockey operations for the Brampton Battalion from its inception in 1997. His passion for the game and devotion to his players and team have made him one of the most liked and successful coaches in the Ontario Hockey League. During his time with the battalion, Butler has seen 24 of his players chosen into the National Hockey League draft, including 2 of the top 5 choices in 2000. Aside from his OHL successes, Butler has also had national and international success. He has head coached and assistant coached several of the Canadian under-18 and junior teams, most of which have not returned home without a medal. Stan Butler's demure coaching style and effort have made him a popular coach with the team and players. Join me, Bina Pandya, after the break as I discuss hockey coaching and teaching one-on-one with Stan Butler. I'm Bina Pandya, and joining me, I have Brampton Battalion head coach and director of hockey operations, Stan Butler. Stan, welcome to One-on-One.
Thank you.
Stan, obviously you're a successful hockey coach. Everybody knows that. You have an amazing reputation. How did you become interested in hockey?
Well, I think like a lot of people, when I was a young kid, I played all kinds of sports. I grew up in the East End of Toronto. Went to Monarch Park Collegiate out there and played all different types of sports, all through, high school and university as well, and just loved sports. And I originally started off as a phys ed teacher in the Scarborough School Board and was coaching numerous sports. And from that, just evolved. And I mean, at the end of the day, when you're in Canada, if you want to become a professional coach or get paid to coach, then you quickly learn that hockey is your best opportunity.
You said you were interested in all different types of sports. Do you think kids today play enough sports?
No, I don't, to be honest with you. I think the problem right now with hockey is that kids play hockey 12 months a year, and I don't think that makes for the best athlete. And I think a lot of times now that if kids would play a multitude of sports throughout the season, I think that would make them a much better athlete and better hockey player. But that's definitely a challenge that we have in our society today, is that we feel that more is better and that variety is not always the spice of life.
I know that you do have a degree in phys ed and you got a master's in education. Why did you decide to go that route?
Well, I mean, when I was a kid, I always thought it'd be neat to be a teacher, and probably the people that had outside of my family members that had the most influence in my life were coaches and teachers, and usually they were the same type of people. So I thought it would be neat type of job to work with young people in and out of the classroom and to establish values with them and work with them in all facets of life, but especially in sports.
How important do you think your teaching skills are as incorporating them into your coaching skills? Do they kind of work over?
Well, I think coaching is teaching. I mean, and I think what coaching is, coaching's 2 things. Coaching's teaching and communication, and that's the 2 things you learn when you're a teacher. So I think it really helps. I've had a lot of experience dealing with teenagers, which sometimes can be good or bad, but I think all that experience really helps me, in the day-to-day routines of my job.
What do you think can be done to get kids more involved in sports? I mean, we're such a society where everything's on the net and kids become sort of computer dependent at a very young age, almost right from when they start.
Well, I know as a parent of 2 kids that it's very, very important that you get your kids involved in activities, and I know with my kids I try to get them into as many sports as possible, and from that then they can decide which sports they like or don't like. And then the other thing you really got to do is if they do have computers in the room, which most kids do today, is you've got to really monitor how much time. And I think that's the biggest thing in society, the change I've seen over the years is many years ago, kids would go outside and play all the time, and now that play is on the computer, and we got to make sure that if we want to keep the kids active and physically fit, that they're getting outside and doing things other than MSNing and being on computers the whole day.
I agree with you that kids and adults, we're not as physically active as we used to be. And do you think, though, also that playing sports has become very expensive? Like, I know even hockey, reality is today that, let's face it, most parents, both the mother and the father, are working. You don't just have the cost of the equipment, the skates, it's also a time factor. Like, who's going to take these kids back and forth, whether it's a hockey practice, baseball, basketball, whatever it may be that your child is interested in?
Well, I don't think there's any doubt. I mean, my biggest concern, I can just relate mostly to hockey right now, is that my biggest concern is that it's becoming an upper middle class sport because of the cost factor. And although there's a lot of great athletes in that social area, I think it's very, very important that we don't lose out on some very good athletes. And we got to find ways and means to allow all kids opportunities to play the game, and especially hockey, because it's such a big part of our heritage, and our country now is such a multicultural society that it's very important for us, and I mean especially in Brampton, to encourage people to get interested in hockey and enjoy it as much as a lot of other people do.
This encouragement, should it come at sort of the primary school level, or, I mean, is it too late if you start getting kids interested in high school? Where should this come?
Well, I mean, the sooner the better, and I think what we've got to do is, I think you get the kids interested, and then they go home and tug on their mom's pants or jeans or whatever the case may be, and say, I want to go play hockey, I want to go play hockey. And I just look back at a player that's very dear to me, Anson Carter, who grew up in Scarborough. And Anson's parents were from the Barbados and obviously didn't play hockey at all. But he took a liking and love to the game and convinced his parents to allow him to play the game. And as a result of that, now he plays in the National Hockey League. So a lot of times, if the kids take an interest first and the parents go with them and allow them to run with it, then that's usually how we get the kids in. But we got to get them early, because hockey's a game that I don't think you need to start at 3 or 4 years of age, but to get into it at 16 or 17 would be pretty difficult.
Well, we have lots more coming up after the break with Stan Butler. Welcome back to One on One with Stan Butler. Stan, as a hockey coach, or just a coach in general, what do you think are some of the most important ingredients or things a person needs to have?
Well, I think a hockey coach has got to be a good communicator. A hockey coach has got to be a good teacher, like we talked about. I think a coach has got to be passionate in the sense that they understand where the player is going to come from. I think the coach has got to be patient, because fans aren't. So they've got to be patient with the players. And I think the coach has got to be honest. I think the players have got to feel that although they may not necessarily agree with everything that you do, that the things that you do are for the best of the team, and you're trying to be as honest as you can with them as well.
As a coach, when you're looking for players that you would like to bring to your particular team, what are some of the qualities that you're looking for?
Well, I mean, I think we look for players that are extremely hardworking, that are very team-oriented type people, that don't mind the team sitting in the front seat and their own individual egos sitting in the back seat. In hockey, they've got to be good skaters. They've got to be competitive, and they've got to have good hockey sense. They're probably the three biggest hockey-related things that our scouts would look at and then I would review when I go out to watch players play.
And these players, what is the age range that you are dealing with?
Well, we're basically dealing with 16 to 20-year-olds. So I guess it's a big range. We have kids that are going into grade 11 at school, and we might have kids that are in second or third year at university. So there's a little bit of range there, and we've got to take that in consideration, that we're kind of dealing with two different groups at times.
All right, as a coach, I mean, you're not just responsible for what's going on the ice. What are some of the other responsibilities you have? I mean, how do you make sure these kids are sort of up with their schoolwork? You've got to find them a place to live. What are some of the other things?
Well, obviously, we got to find them billet homes. So, I mean, probably 80–85% of our players would live away from home. So we've got to find them a place to check. We go over, we meet with the families, do criminal background checks on them. That's just the way our society is today. At school, that's very important, because not every player is going to be a hockey player, and even if they do, they still need their schooling. So at the high school, Turner Fenton, where our players go to school, we'll go over and meet with them and talk about how the kids are doing in school. Curfews, I mean, obviously if you're out late at night and enjoying different parts of life, that could affect your hockey. So you've got to put it in perspective, and we got to make sure the kids eat properly, get to bed properly, and things like that. And what we're trying to do basically is we're the last training session before they try to make a professional living at it. So what we're trying to do is get them ready. It's, to leave the nest and try to prepare them in all those areas, so when they're finally on their own, that they're ready and willing and able to take care of themselves and everything around that they may have to deal with from a hockey, social, and life perspective.
Do they have to maintain a certain standard in school, or do you have a certain bar or something that's kind
Well,
of...
I mean, obviously, not everybody's created equal, and on the ice as a hockey player, in the classroom as well. So, I mean, what we'd like to see from the players is, if a kid comes to us and he's a 65% student, obviously we expect him to stay at that level. I'm not a magician. I'm not going to take a 60% student and get him into Harvard, but we want them to, same on the ice, we want them to work and compete at the level of their capabilities allow.
What, for these kids that are there and they're putting everything into hockey, what happens if they sort of can't keep up with school?
Well, there's different ways to deal with it. I mean, we'll call their parents, we'll talk to their parents, we'll look at tutors for them. We may sit them on a few hockey games to tune them up a little bit that way and make them realize that, although they're here for hockey, school's pretty important too.
So, in essence, you'd say that you're a coach, but you're also sort of a semi-part-time parent to these kids too?
Yeah, I mean, most people as parents would have probably 2 or 3 kids. On a good year, I'll have anywhere from 22 to 24.
Stay with us, because after the break, I'm going to ask Dan what it was like when he first came to the Brampton Battalion. You're watching One-on-One with Stan Butler. Stan, how did you end up at the Brampton Battalion?
Well, it was very interesting. At the time, I was coaching in the Western Hockey League for the Prince George Cougars, which is in northern British Columbia. And Mr. Scott Abbott, one of the co-inventors of Trivia Pursuit, got a team, a franchise, expansion franchise in the Ontario Hockey League. And I've known Scott, I guess, since about 1990, 91, when he owned the Caledon Canadians, and at the time I was coaching the Wexford Raiders. So we had a professional relationship at that time, and what transpired from then is that I contacted Scott, because I'm originally from the Toronto area, and said that I'd be interested in coming back to the Toronto area, and from that we had a bunch of meetings, and I was hired to become the coach and general manager of the hockey team at that time.
When you first came to the battalion, what are some of the greatest challenges that you faced?
Well, obviously we were building a team from scratch. So, I mean, when I took the job to be the Brampton Battalion coach, there wasn't even an arena. So, and we
That's
had,
a bit of a challenge in a hockey game, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's pretty hard to win if you don't have an ice surface and a couple of nets to play with. But we had an office in City Hall, in the back of City Hall, and we had to start from scratch. I had to hire scouts right away for that year. We had to organize that. We started to have to look for billet homes. We had to design a dress room, decide what type of dress room we wanted, make sure it was functioning, hire trainers, assistant coaches, off-ice officials, goal judges, whatever the case may be. So there was a lot of organizational things that needed to be put in place before the puck was going to be dropped for our first game.
All right, as a coach, how much pressure are you under to ensure that your team does perform well and ultimately win?
Well, I mean, obviously it's a business, so I mean, you're always under pressure. But if you don't like pressure, if you can't handle pressure, then you're in the wrong business. And I mean, I was always a person growing up. I was always a pitcher in baseball, always a goalie in hockey. I always seemed to gravitate to positions of pressure. So, yeah, there is pressure, but I mean, it's good pressure, and it's what I think makes a job exciting. That you go to the rink and you want to win every day, and no matter what you do, you're going to have people that criticize you, and you've got to have a plan, and you can't sway from that plan, even though there's other people that think you should. And you know, that's just the nature of the business. It's there is pressure, but you learn to deal with it. I'm sure it's no different than a heart surgeon that's got to deal with people's lives every day. I mean, it's a different type of pressure, but it's still pressure. So it's something that you get used to, and you know, you learn to deal with it eventually.
Okay, Stan, I agree with you. It is pressure. But besides the pressure on yourself, when you have, let's face it, reality is you don't win every game. You are now responsible for motivating all these young kids. How do you do it?
Well, you look at it different ways. You have different strategies. When you've dealt with teenagers as long as I have, you kind of get a feel for the group, because every group's different. Like every year we have a different team. The team will have a different characters on the team. We'll have a different type of group, so you got to move there. And what you got to be careful is, like, if the team loses 3 or 4 games in a row, the natural instinct probably is to go in and really be really firm and hard on the players. But at the same time, you know, you can't beat them up either. Like, you know, you can't constantly be on their back all the time, because if you do, you just take the heart out of them. So you use different strategies, and you know what? To be honest, sometimes they work, sometimes they don't, and you've got to react on your feet a lot too, and move one way or the other pretty quickly.
Stan, reality is there is going to be times as a coach that you have to make difficult decisions and let a player go. How do you feel as a coach and as a parent?
Well, I mean, obviously it's tough. Anytime you've worked with a person every day and you've got to make a change, it's hard. And I mean, you obviously grow feelings towards that person. But I think most of my players understand that I'm a very loyal person, and that if there's a need to make a change, that there's probably a good reason for it. So as a result of that, what I try to do is bring them in, tell them the reason, tell them why I'm doing it, and whether they don't agree or not, hopefully they will respect that and move on to wherever they got to go, and we'll go from there.
Well, coming up after the break, I'll ask Stan how he feels when a player makes it to the NHL. You're watching One on One with Stan Butler. Stan, tell me, as a coach, how do you feel when someone makes it to the NHL?
Well, I mean, you're really happy. I mean, it's great for our organization, but you know, you're really happy for a player. I mean, you look at a kid like Raffi Torres, who just went through the Stanley Cup final, and he was a 6th-round draft pick to our team, and came there with no guarantees, and worked extremely hard for 3 years, and became, you know, developed from a boy to a man, and became, you know, a very talented hockey player. And you know, to see how well he's done, and Jason Spezza, and you know, numerous players that we've had, you know, it's always a great feeling, and you're happy for the kids, because you know, it's nice to see that the things that you've told them they've listened to, and as a result have worked with and got there.
Would you ever consider coaching women's hockey?
It's never been something that's crossed my mind. Having coached the World Junior team and Team Canada numerous times, I've had a lot of dealings with Melanie Davison, who's the national women's coach, and you know what? I think it's great what Hockey Canada is doing, and that is putting prominent women in elite roles with women's hockey, and I think that's the way we need to go, and I think the men should stay in the men, and some people may not like saying this, and we should develop more women to take over those roles. And judging from the last 2 gold medals that our women have got, both coached by women, and they beat the United States team, both coaching by men, that I think the way it's going is probably the proper way for our country.
Stan, as a hockey coach and someone who's so passionate about hockey, why can hockey sort of not generate the global fever the way soccer can? I mean, we all got caught up in the World Soccer Cup and that sort of thing. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, it's interesting. I was over in Sweden when the World Cup was on, so you really see in Europe what it is. But, you know, I think, you know, in parts of Canada, like I've lived in Western Canada, and hockey is a culture there. And I know World Junior Championships, a lot of the people, especially in Western Canada, they live or die by it. So I just think there is a lot of passion in our country for hockey, because, you know, but we can create more passion by, you know, as people grow up in our country and come to our country, if we can excite them about hockey and get them to be as passionate about hockey as they are, say, about soccer, then we can create that atmosphere amongst everybody in our country, not just the few that are very interested in it.
Well, you've had many players that have made it to the NHL. Have you ever thought of coaching in the NHL?
I think it's something that you think about from time to time, but if it happens, it happens, you know. But right now, I'm really happy about coaching where I am. We've got very good ownership in Scott Abbott, and you know, my biggest goal right now is leading Brampton Battalion hockey team to an OHL championship. And quite frankly, it's a very difficult championship to win, and that's where we are right now. We want to try to do our best to bring that championship to the Brampton community.
Well, you've also done a bit of broadcasting, I understand, for TSN.
Yes, oh yeah, I've done some. I mean, that's an interesting experience. I've been really lucky. Paul Hemming, who's a good friend of mine, is a director over at TSN, and he's a season ticket holder with the battalion. And I've done a lot of the Hockey Canada properties for them, the midget and junior championships, and I've had the privilege of working with Dave Randorf and Rod Black. And you know what? I always think from a professional development standpoint, it's always good to watch a hockey game on the other side. And sometimes I think it makes me a better coach because I can see what the broadcasters see, or sometimes what they don't see. So it really it's an enjoyable experience, and I don't know if I'd want to do it 300 days a year like they do, but you know, the times I've done it, it's been a great experience and professional development for me as well.
Stan, what's the best thing about your job?
Well, I think the biggest thing I enjoy about my job is you're getting to work with teenagers all the time, and when you work with teenagers, it keeps you young. And I guess as you get older, that's good. That's a good thing. And the other thing, when you're working with a group of hockey players, that every day is a new day because different challenges await you, and I find that very, very exciting. And I think the last thing that I really enjoy about it is just that you're getting to make a difference in people's lives. And I think any time you can make a difference in somebody's life, that makes your job that much more enjoyable.
Well, Stan, thank you for being here on One on One, and I hope you have a great season.
Thank you.
That wraps up another episode of One on One. I hope to see you next time.
He's clear to get the puck. Picks it up, takes the shot, scores!